Every time you watch a gambling movie, the thought crosses your mind that you might just have the talent to drop everything and become a professional poker player. More likely than not, you would be incredibly wrong. Contrary to popular belief, becoming a good gambler takes just as much time and practice as any other traditional job. Oh, and you'll need an edge up on the casinos to be successful. Join us as we take a look at some of the tricks of the casino trade that might just help you beat the house next time you're in Vegas. Now, before I get started, one thing you should note is that some gamblers actually spend 12 to 16 hours on a single table just to end up losing thousands of dollars by the end of their entire run. On top of all that, it takes a bit of special talent to be able to work out the numerous outcomes and strategies of each game. Knowing some of these tricks might allow you to mitigate your losses, but most of these rules are purposefully meant to keep the average Joe from bankrupting the casino in a single run. Don't bring your credit cards. Now, first off, we should probably begin with a few tips that might help you out at the tables. More than likely, you're not a professional gambler looking for advice on a World 5 list video, so it's best that we inform you about some of the basics. Some of these may seem painfully obvious, but there are some novices out there who just don't know the do's and don'ts of a casino. The first and maybe most important tip is to only take what you can afford to lose. This means that you should only gamble with money that you're comfortable losing, and there's no need to go broke trying to have fun. Remember, this is recreation, not your primary means of paying the bills. One of the best budgeting techniques for those of weak will is to only bring cash. This means that you're going to leave your wallet at home with all of your credit and debit cards, and once you crap out and lose all your cash, it's time to leave. Without your cards, you're not going to have the temptation or the option to go back and buy more chips and try to chase a pipe dream. Casinos, well, they don't really have any morals, and they're going to happily bankrupt you. In some casinos, you can even start gambling with as little as $10. Oh, and remember your ID, because you're going to need that as well. Don't take out your cell phone. Now, this is one of the lesser important rules for winning money, but more of a way to prevent the casino from taking you out back and beating the crap out of you. Casino etiquette dictates that cell phone use is either prohibited or considered highly suspicious. In many games, you're going to be forced to forfeit your money if you're seen with a cell phone out at your table, and the reason for this is because it's a means of cheating. Casinos are afraid that you might be receiving texts with information about the dealer's cards or maybe even another player. In recent years, cell phone technology has become so advanced that people are even using them to hack slot machines. In the 70s and the 90s, there were infamous slot machine scams, ones that were ran by tech teams that resulted in millions of dollars of losses for the casino. Now, while you can have your cell phone with you, make sure that you don't take it out at the table. Cash out and step away if you really need to take a call or reply to a text. Cell phones are the biggest concern to the casinos when they suspect an individual of counting cards or being part of a card-counting team. Track your time. Now, here's a tip that most people don't really think about when they're gambling: time management. It's one of the biggest pitfalls that even the most skilled of gamblers will fall into. If you're playing a game or you're at a table for more than 30 minutes and you've not even broken even, it's probably time to cut your losses and move along. For more experienced gamblers, we suggest a time frame of about 15 minutes. Now, if you're not managing to execute your tactics well enough to at least maintain your pot, then maybe you just need a fresh start. And maybe the game just isn't for you. What happens to many novice gamblers is that they begin to keep trying to win at the same table. While the novice is just learning how to play the game, his or her competitors are learning the habits of the novice. And if you have watched the World Poker Tour, then you know that even the slightest twitches and tells can be what decides a game. A stressed out newbie? Well, that's just low-hanging fruit to an experienced or even intermediate player. Take a break. Now this one goes hand in hand with the last tip. you're going to need to manage your time as well as your mental endurance. Gambling may seem a bit fun, but it can also be incredibly intense and stressful if you're losing money or if you're playing in a high-stakes game. It's good to take a break between games to recuperate and get your wits about you before you go back into the trenches. A good rule of thumb? Take about 15 minutes in between each game or table. And if you happen to be on a hot streak, ride out the streak, and once you take your first loss, cash out and just walk away. Don't chase your losses. Chasing your losses is one of the first signs of a gambling addiction. This is when someone loses money while gambling, but they keep on gambling under the hope that they're going to win it back. Many of these people don't really seem to think that they have a problem, and they often say, "I'm not trying to make any money, I just want to break even." This can be an incredible slippery slope. And if you ever find yourself just trying to break even after a losing streak, just walk away from the table. Numerous studies have shown that this is a recipe for depression and financial ruin. Never play Keno. Keno, well, that's kinda like the Nike of the gambling industry. It looks good, it sounds good, and it's on every channel in the world, but it's just a bad product. Keno preys on the novice gambler. Rather than going into the details of how and why you shouldn't play Keno, we're just going to leave you with the numbers. The odds of winning in Keno are about 1 in 3.5 quintillion. If that isn't enough to dissuade you, then you might just be a lost cause. Be a vampire. One of the shadiest tricks that the casino plays on you is your natural attraction to light. Novice gamblers don't even know where to start, and they just let their eyes dart around the room until they see something that catches their attention. Your eyes are naturally attracted to illuminated spaces, and the casinos, well, they capitalize on this. They often put their worst games right under a spotlight. For example, you might find Keno to be a suspiciously well-lit area in the casino. Don't let your primal instincts end up bankrupting you, though. Be a vampire and avoid the light. This is not to say that if you're rolling dice under the stairwell, you're going to become a millionaire, but at least you're on a statistically even playing field. Don't drink. When going into a casino, it's a good time to take up that vow of sobriety that you've been putting off since senior year of college. That's because drinking alcohol is what causes even some of the best gamblers to become some of the most broke gamblers in a single night. Casinos know that people are more willing to take risks under the influence of alcohol, so they make sure that it's flowing. In many casinos, you don't even have to pay for drinks when you're sitting at the table. A waitress is just going to come right up and ask you what you'd like. Then they bring you your cocktail of choice right to the table, and it's proper etiquette, of course, to tip them before they leave. As you spend more and more time at the casino, you're going to begin to notice that these waiters and waitresses are extremely vigilant and seem to appear at exactly the same time that you take your last sip. Within moments, you're going to have another drink in your hand, and within a few hours, you won't have a single dollar in your pocket. Casinos really capitalize on making money off of your gambling addiction, not your alcoholism. But that doesn't really mean that they won't use your shortcomings against you. Counting cards. Card counting is probably the most popular gambling tactic in the world, and even though it's been around for well over a century, it was first made popular by the MIT blackjack team in the 1990s. After the team fell apart later in the 90s, people still continued to count cards, but the tactic fell out of the limelight until the movie 21, which was based on the MIT team. Sadly, though, the movie would mislead most of the potential gambling population by portraying card counting as something mathematical absolute for card prediction. Unfortunately, this is not the case. Card counting is based on probability, and you can only increase your advantage by about 1%. In the tactic, you assign the value of -1, 0, and +1 to a card in a certain number range. For example, all cards with the number 2 to 6 are given the value of -1. and cards with 6, 7, and 8 are given the value of 0, and so on and so forth. Every time you draw a card, you add the corresponding value to your count. So, if you have 2 cards under the value of 6, your count would be -1. If you get a card over the value of 8, then you would add +1. So how does basic addition allow you to gain an advantage on the casino? Well, it really doesn't. The more positive that your count is, the more likely the next card is 8 or lower, as there would be more low-number cards left in the deck. In the game of blackjack, for example, this would help you to decide whether you wanted to hit or stay. However, there's an obvious problem, and it's why card counting is not an absolute technique. In the worst-case scenario, if all high cards are stacked together, your count's going to continue to move into the positive. The rules of card counting say that it's more likely that the next card is a lower number because there are more lower numbers left in the deck. But since we know that all high cards are stacked together, the card counting technique fails us. Despite this fatal flaw, it is still by far the best gambling tactic out there. But while this cannot turn a novice blackjack player into a casino closer, it can give you the advantage to a seasoned blackjack player. Even though it can only give the player about a 1% increase in advantage, many casinos have outlawed the technique. While it isn't against the law to count cards, most casinos just frown upon it. In many cases, this can get you a lifetime ban from many establishments, or at least they're going to take your winnings for the night. The technique is most famously used in blackjack, but it can be applied to any card game where chance and probability are involved. Which of these tips and tricks were your favorite? Let us know all about it in the comments below. And remember, gambling is supposed to be fun, and there's no need to lose your life savings when trying to have that fun. Thanks for watching. Lindsay Lohan. One of the most popular female celebrities to get in trouble on multiple occasions is Lindsay Lohan. She was first arrested in 2007 for being found under the influence after getting into a car accident.